Well, the deadline for filing your taxes, if you haven't already, is just over 24 hours away. Yes, here we go again. The good news is the chance of getting audited by the IRS is the lowest in years. The bad news, if you need to get in touch with the tax man, well, good luck, because millions of phone calls are going unanswered this year. With us now, Mattie Duppler from Americans for Tax Reform and Scott Hodge, president of the Tax Foundation. Welcome to you both. Mattie, I'll start with you. Okay, so if the IRS isn't picking up its telephone, how do we get help?
That's a good question, Gerri. Hopefully a lot of your viewers have already filed, given that we are only 24 hours away. But this is an interesting proposition here. The fact that the IRS is not even able to complete its most basic responsibilities, which is helping the American taxpayer know their liability and fulfill it. And we also hear from the left this time of year about how we need to give the IRS more responsibility. So right now, we're already looking at Obamacare coming into full effect and the IRS not knowing how to handle not even the most basic requirement of giving the tax information you need for health care out and secure. But also, we hear a lot of times from the left that because filing is so difficult and because so many people have problems with it, we should just nationalize it. We should allow the federal government and the IRS to
not this year, not in the next 24 hours, that's for damn sure. I don't think that's going to happen. But, Scott, to you, look, 80,000 pages of taxes, tax codes, regulations, as Mattie is saying, it's hugely complicated. And now, big changes this year. And I think a lot of people, if you have through this already, you may be paying more, particularly if you're a well-to-do household, $200,000 in income or more. Tell us what's changing, what's so very different this year.
Well, especially for high-income people, they're paying higher tax rates as a result of the fiscal cliff deal that was signed last year. And so the top rate will go from 35% to 39.6% for those above $250,000 or so in income. But then those people also pay higher tax rates on their capital gains and dividend income. The other thing they'll see, this is kind of stealthy, is that a lot of their deductions will be phased out or reduced after they hit certain thresholds, say over $360,000 a year in income. So there are a lot of things going on here, higher rates and fewer deductions for some of these high-income individuals. Well,
I'm going to tell you, Mattie, you're paying more for your investments, right? I think that's probably bad for the stock market. You're paying more on your income. Let me tell you, it's Obamacare. It's what they call the American Tax Relief Act. Ha, ha, ha. No, it wasn't. Mattie, when you look at this, do you think people are getting a little sticker shock this year?
Well, I think so. And, Scott's talking a lot about the high-income earners and where they're getting hit. But there's a lot of average American families who are really going to feel a big tax burden this year with a lot of these new health care taxes. Things like the FSA, the flexible spending account that used to be unlimited under federal law, now has a cap on it that's pretty severe. It's $2,500. And this is something that families use to pay for braces for kids. It's something that families with special needs kids use for school tuition, which can be tens of thousands of dollars. So that's certainly something that an average American family is going to feel. Other things like deductions for health care, that got a haircut this time around too. So a lot of the Obamacare tax hikes that have not gone into effect, that went into effect this year and next year, are really going to be hitting average American families, and they're going to be feeling the squeeze.
That's a great point. Scott, to you, Mattie was mentioning earlier the fact that there are going to be fewer this year. I guess that's good news. But, the reality is they can come back to you anytime. What is it? What's the window? 7 years? I mean, look, they could come back later and say, we missed this last year, but this year we're coming back to you on your 2013 filing. They get a free pass, don't they?
The IRS does get a free pass because really the onus is on us to prove our innocent, not on them to prove that we're guilty.
And they've got a lot of power.
And they do. And the IRS spends $5 billion a year on enforcement to try to wring the last dollar of taxes out of all of us, even though more and more of us are either filing electronically, that we're filing with software, or we're paying someone else, a professional, for instance, to do our tax returns. And yet the IRS is increasing their enforcement budget to get the every last dollar out of every taxpayer.
Get every last dollar out of every taxpayer. The folks most likely to be audited, Mattie, is it mostly small business people, or who gets that audit?
Well, something that I think has been particularly prevalent over the last week, you saw last week House Ways and Means Chairman Dave Camp released records that showed Lois Lerner, who is the head of the IRS Tax Exempt Division, looking at conservative groups for audits. And this is something that comes out of the IRS's own Inspector General, said back in May that when they were selecting groups for audits, 100% of the groups they ended up selecting were right-leaning groups. So your small business may not be safe if you perhaps donated to a candidate, attended a rally, or even in some cases had a Facebook post that made you seem conservative. This is all information that the IRS was asking from people, and so this is something that is a major concern, I think, to anyone who is politically active, but any American who cares about their First Amendment
Mattie,
rights
you're so
has
right.
to be concerned about the IRS.
And we should ask our viewers, if you find yourself in that situation, GerriWillis.com to send us an email. Before you guys go, I have to tell folks about the top excuses for not paying taxes because they're pretty darn funny. Filing taxes is voluntary, and I don't care to volunteer. True or false, Mattie?
Unfortunately, it's false.
How about this one? There's no gross income when I exchange labor for money, so I owe no income taxes.
Yeah, they don't buy that. Wesley Snipes tried that one. It didn't work for him.
How about this? The Federal Reserve notes aren't real currency, so if you get paid in dollars, you don't owe taxes, Mattie.
Well, we just saw, too, with Bitcoin, you're going to have a tax liability there as well, so I don't think that's going to fly either.
How about this? This is really tricky. I'm a state citizen, not a U.S. citizen, so I don't owe any federal taxes. Scott?
No, that doesn't fly either with the IRS or the courts. People have gone to jail for that one.
And, Mattie, hey, taxes are unconstitutional.
I don't think this argument is the most fun, but the court has again and again told us that that is not the case.
Oh, well, the dog ate my homework, I guess. Mattie and Scott, thanks for coming on tonight. Great to see you guys. Thanks so much.